walk up to me and say, hey, what should I do? And I give you an answer because you have to answer number 1, 2, and 3 before, and then number 4 maybe a little bit, before you can possibly know what tactics and what strategies make sense. Just because this works over here and that works over there and whatever, it doesn't mean that it represents who you are and what your brand is out there in the market space. And that consistency and that dependability and those sorts of things are what give you referrals and what give you word of mouth and what give what you do value and differentiation in the world. If I went to every real estate agent in the world and I said, here's your package and this is exactly what you do, why would I listen to any of them? You've got to be different.
Quick sidebar. I saw this yesterday. I wasn't surprised to see it, but television stations now are producing, like Channel 9 does about 60 hours of news a week. Voracious for content. And I had an example about 6 weeks ago for one of my clients. We're doing an event, and I was posting it on the internet. And I got a call from the morning producer on my BlackBerry, actually a direct message at about 6:55, if we could be on the next morning. 92% of reporters now are on LinkedIn. I think the lowest amount, 86%, are on Facebook, and is somewhere in between in Twitter. Reporters, producers are desperate for content, and it gets down to keywords. But if you're out there, the news media is looking for you to be on their newscast. So that's the big sidebar. But when you're filling 60 hours of news a week, and Mike knows this, don't be surprised to get a call and react immediately. That was a case study for me.
Right. And it's probably more likely that they'll call somebody who always has a consistent sort of a trend. If I talk about this and this and this and this and this, and I went out last night for spaghetti, I'm a far less reliable person probably than if I stick to kind of an experience and I'm a credible source and I do that, right? So let's keep kind of walking through this. Clearly define the keywords to include in your ongoing program for SEO purposes. So if my goal is to be picked up by news stations, right, and get PR out of that, I need to include keywords in my tweets, in what I put out there, in my blog posts, in my videos, in my tags, and everything that I do. So if I'm writing about something and I'm not using any keywords and nobody can find what I'm writing about, isn't that far less productive than if I'm writing about something and everybody can find that information because I've tagged it correctly? So there's tools that we would use and a lot of people would use to go out there and say, what are the keywords people are searching for that are within the realm of what I can add value about? How many searches are done locally in the United States? What's the level of competition for those sorts of things out there in the world? And I can pick and choose how I'm going to make a difference and how I'm going to attract a larger audience and get more referrals and speak about things and become known as a credible resource in this industry and the go-to person that's going to generate sales. So that's an important step, I think, in creating an effective plan. Clearly defining the keywords, clearly determine how often and through what mediums you're going to participate, right? So, can I go out and make a video every hour of the day? The answer is no. I'm not going to have time to do that. Can I pay Dale to make 8 videos a day? Do I have $800 a day if he's running a special to go do that? Probably not. I'd have a hard time lining all of that up. So make a plan. Get out there and say, hey, how often would my target audience, how often could I truly add value to my target audience with what my brand experience is going to be, and what does that look like? How does it represent my brand, right? If I am writing on Facebook every 5 minutes, what does that say about how I'm living my life, right? I mean, you guys would think, they must be going bankrupt over there because they got time to do that, right? I'd rather be smart a few times, far less often to engage people and say something than to be doing it all the time, Mike. Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
You can just start standing up when you have something to say. No.
All right. I just want to say something about that. It's okay you make your own plan, say how often you want to put something on your social media, but if you start receiving feedbacks or interaction, make sure you have your notification on so you receive email and you immediately respond to that.
So very good. So you're going to make a plan for how often you're going to maybe, and you're going to have to adjust this plan. Everything today is iterative. If you said this is going to be my social media plan for the next year and it's cut in stone and that's where I'm going to budge, you'd be ridiculously stupid, right? Because you've got to adjust with this. It's based on what occurs out there in the world and where you can add value. And what she's saying is absolutely, wow, if people want to engage with you, you know, it'd be like not answering a text message when they send it or not answering your telephone when they call. They've put something out there. You're now getting the engagement that you wanted. Immediately or as fast as possible, I want to reply, and that just shows that I'm using these tools well, right? That's the point, huh? Okay, so very good. So determine how often and through what mediums you're going to participate. So I'm going to write a blog. Every time I write a blog, I'm going to share it on Facebook, and I'm going to write some information about it. I'm going to have that RSS feed flow through to my LinkedIn. I'm going to then tweet it. I'm then going to, once a month, do a press release on something optimized with keywords, put it out there on PR Newswire, and I'm going to syndicate it. I'm going to make videos each month on this topic, and I'm going to put them out there, and I'm going to tag them with the correct keywords. And this is my plan that I'm going to go through. And then I see how things are going, and I adjust that plan to make sure that I'm receiving the results that I'm looking for, while always presenting my brand experience in the way that I think that I want to be seen out there in the world. Any questions so far? Okay, cool. Next step. Clearly define what on-brand content you're going to produce and or clearly define exactly how you're going to participate with other people's content. Am I going to be known as a content aggregator where I'm summarizing content and pulling things in, or am I going to be known as a content generator, some sort of a combination of both? How am I going to listen to broad conversations out there within my industry and figure out, no matter where people are looking and what keywords they're looking for that are persuasive to me, I'm going to have a presence out there in the world and listen, right, and participate. So that's a big part of it. Number 8 is establish measurement tracking, which allows you to measure the progress. Even if you just want to put things in an Excel file, right? So this month I did this and I got this. This month I did this and I got this. This month, so that you can look over time and see what the trends are and what's happening.
Would you go back to 7, established publishing?
I'm sorry. I'll go back to 7 and we'll actually talk about it this time. Yeah. So 7 is figuring out what tools you're going to use. And there's probably a lot of great suggestions in the group about the different tools. We have about 5 minutes left on this before we start our tips group. But some of the more popular tools for publishing are like a Hootsuite or something where you can post in multiple different accounts. You can do multiple different mediums, multiple different social media. You can listen a little bit in there, and you can do all kinds of things. Hootsuite would be a good tool to manage your activities. There's other tools like Radian 6 that are more enterprise level, where you can take all of a river of news and you can assign it to different departments and different people and post different responsibilities. And so it just depends on what level of things you need. There's Google Alerts. Everybody ought to have a Google Alerts account set up. They ought to be following their name and they ought to be following their industry at a minimum in the world today, right? If you're not doing that, do that today. Do it over the weekend. Set up a Google Alerts account and start listening to things that are going out there in topics that you want to hear more about. Bitly, this is kind of good, and we're doing this a lot, where if I'm making a post, I can use a shortened URL, or if I'm making a tweet, I can use a shortened URL, and I can track how many people clicked on that and how many people came to my website from that, or how many people watched my video, or how many people thought that was interesting, right? So you can just go in there, to Bitly and make smaller URLs, and you can get tracking on what's going on. You can also make QR codes and things there. So defining your tool set that you're going to use to get this job done if you're going to do this yourself. That's probably a whole nother discussion. You know, do you have time to do this yourself, right? Ought to ask about that. It just depends on what the ROI is going to be if you have somebody else do it for you. Schedule your social media marketing. That fits in with the plan. And then the last thing that I briefly talked about is measure the results. So what if I'm doing, you know, 3 tweets a day and 1 Facebook thing and making a new video every day, and I'm going out there, I'm looking, and nothing's happening? Should I keep doing that for the next year? Right? Of course not. It's not working. Relax, have a beer, and watch TV. You know, you don't need to do all that. It's not happening. So you've got to either change your strategy, you've got to put out some different content, you've got to use better keywords in what you're doing, you've got to be more engaging, so change and adjust and fix what's going on. Don't just, stay after it for a year and hope that something's going to be different. There's a definition of that, right? Yeah, insanity, expecting a different result. So take this and test things and put stuff out there and ask and write about things and see what engages your audience to generate the result that you're hoping for. Yes?
When you get to measuring and measurements themselves, how do you get in? Oh, sorry, I'm usually loud enough.
You can stand up for us if you wouldn't mind.
Marilyn Harmachek, consultant. When you're talking about measurement and measuring, how do you get into the impact and the influence of what you're doing, not just the numbers of what you're doing?
Do you want to address that? Mike, you can address that if you want.
The question is, how do you get into the measurement of the impact of what you're doing?
Yes.
Instead of just the numbers.
Not just the numbers, but really getting in, are you doing anything for influence and impact?
The tools out there that are available are imperfect. For that, I think that the industry standard is clout, but it's fatally flawed in that it doesn't allow you to integrate all of your business tools. It's really more fashioned to if you're a celebrity, and everything that you do is about your personal brand. So if you're a speaker or something like that, that might have some. I think the key equation is: are you influencing influencers? Are people who are influencing, who have big followings and who are very active online and are getting people paying attention to them, are they paying attention to you? How often is the stuff that you're putting out there being shared? How many tweets of yours are being retweeted? How many different entities are retweeting your stuff or sharing your stuff within the networks? And, within the numbers, you can dial down and see which posts of yours are generating the most engagement, how many different people are engaging with them, what time of day, and what content out there is most germane to your audience, and continually refine that message. So within the numbers, you can look and find out how you're doing in terms of attention share. And I also think it's good to figure out a benchmark. We have a client that's in that started up their stuff. They're really launched or relaunched their social media presence in the middle of late in 2010, and they're chasing a competitor who's been online and very active in it since early in 2009. And so when we do their monthly reports, we look at how we're tracking against how they're doing. So if you've got a benchmark against someone to compare yourself, then that's good. That's a good tool. Did that answer your question? Yeah, unfortunately, and it has to do with data privacy and the protection of the data. Is why we really haven't been able to crack the nut yet to say, okay, here's the silver bullet. There's never going to be that silver bullet. I mean, there's always going to be some kind of intuitive nature of what you do, right?
We can get all the numbers in the world, but at some point we have to look at the cash flow.
Well, 97% of people know that you can make the numbers, statistics do whatever you want, right? So.